Mother Knows Death, starring Nicole and Jemmy and Maria Q. Kane.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mother Knows Death. We had two huge natural occurrences this week that relate to some of our news stories, so we're going to talk about that first.
First, we had a 4.8 earthquake in our area. So I know everybody in California is probably like, get over it. We have these all the time. But for us, it was quite literally shook me. But I was upstairs. We were doing like some pictures for the website. And I was upstairs in one of the girls' room doing my makeup. And I saw a truck drive by out the window. And then the house was shaking, but then it wouldn't stop shaking. And being on the second floor, it felt worse than it probably actually was. And then you started screaming up at me, is this an earthquake? And
Yeah, and Gabe was upstairs. Then I knew because Gabe was upstairs and stuff fell off of his shelf. So that was obvious. And he's on the task force. So his phone started blowing up with like, I felt it in North Jersey. I felt it here. I felt it here. And we're like, okay, confirmed. But it was fun. And I know that people in California think we're little bitches,
yeah.
but it was exciting. And the kids were at school. And of course, I didn't have any way to get a hold of them, but they were all really excited about it. So, all right, you want to get into the story? So this happened in Philly, right? And you don't think about all the things that are happening when something like this happens.
No. So a guy in our area was mid-vasectomy when the earthquake hit. But, when it happened, the doctors stopped. They waited a couple seconds. And then when they knew it was over, they just picked right back up where they left off.
So it's really funny because when you get a vasectomy, it's a procedure that's done for sterilization. Most people know that because they've either had somebody that they love or they've had it done themselves. So it's a really familiar procedure, but I don't know if everybody knows what goes on during that surgery. So I'll let you know. What happens is you have your testicle and, well, some of you have your testicles. The testicles are where the sperm live. And there is a tube that goes from the testicle up into the prostate gland called the vas deferens. And that is kind of the transportation system for the sperm to leave the testicle and get to the penis. And what happens is once it gets to the prostate gland, the prostate makes the portion of the semen that's the liquid portion, it mixes together and then it shoots out as ejaculation out of the penis. Well, when you get a vasectomy done, they cut off that transportation system in the vas deferens, which is why it's called a vasectomy. So the sperm are no longer able to meet with the liquid portion of the semen. And what happened during that is they put a little tiny incision in the scrotum to access the vas deferens. So you're thinking about a surgeon that's got maybe a scalpel blade very close to your manhood. And then there's an earthquake. So of course this guy, I love that him and his wife kind of made a joke about it, but it is kind of scary to think that the earth is shaking and there's a guy with a knife close to your penis.
Yeah, I mean, his wife was like, if there was ever a sign that we shouldn't have another child, this was it. So at least they could find a little bit of humor out of it. I never thought about that too, because, we think of most natural events that happen, maybe a tornado or a hurricane, something like that. We have kind of warning and know what's going to happen. So I assume most or all surgeries would be rescheduled, right? Not to risk the patient being in a situation like this, but earthquakes aren't as easy to detect. So I wonder what happens in California where they experience these so frequently, and they're a huge center for especially plastic surgery.
Yeah, who cares about that? Think about like legit like Whipple procedures
No,
or
I
something
know.
that are surgeries under hours. Yeah, it is. I guess it's just kind of like you take a chance. That's it. And it's nuts. So that happened, right? That was last Thursday. It was like the day after we
No, that was
recorded,
Friday.
right?
Friday.
Oh, it was Friday.
Yeah.
So that happened, and then we had the eclipse happening too. So the kids were just like, Lillian was just like so excited about all this stuff going on this week. And we saw the eclipse here. It was kind of a little uneventful. We kind of saw it, but it was as soon as like the big part of the show was happening, a giant rain cloud like went over the sun. So that was pretty cool though. We just like went up to the waterfront to look at it. But a woman, so I knew that there was going to be stories rolling in after this, of course, just because there were so many tourists and all these things happening. So do you want to tell them about this story?
Yeah, this first story was this mother, father, and their daughter. They were traveling to see the eclipse in upstate New York, and the family had just bought an Airstream trailer, which is like kind of our dream to have, I don't know if anybody's seen them, but they're like the retro aluminum trailers. Some of them are big full size trailers. It seems like they had a smaller size one that hitched on the back of their truck. So they had about 20 minutes left in their ride to wherever they were going, and the mom and daughter decide to go in the trailer while the dad's driving the truck. So the dad's in the pickup truck driving, and the mom and daughter are in the trailer, which is hitched on the back of it on a highway. So I first thought was that can't be safe, right? And
It's not
no,
legal.
and it turns out it's not legal to ride in a trailer that's hitched on the back of a moving vehicle, and for very good reason, because the mother was trying to secure the passenger door on the back of this trailer, and I guess because of the movement and maybe slipping, she flew out the door, hit her head and shoulder on the pavement, and she ended up dying from her injuries. Her daughter witnessed the whole thing, who's getting married later this year. That's absolutely horrific. To lose your mother, witness her death. They were trying to do a fun family activity, and it sucks. And this lady was a pediatrician and is going to be really missed in her community.
Yeah, it's terrible, and it was a brand new Airstream, so I don't think that there was anything wrong with the Airstream. But when you're pulling something like that, it's not flat on the road. It's kind of on an angle, and it just there's reason why they say not to do that, because things like this can happen. And witnesses were saying that she was like hanging from the handle, and it
Horrible.
just sounds so terrible. Yeah, and she was brought to the hospital, but she was dead from her
And
head
how do you
trauma.
communicate with the driver of the truck that something's happening other than all I could
I
think
was
was a
thinking
phone
that
call?
too.
But how do you
Yeah, like he
guarantee it?
probably had no idea. I mean, unless you look in your rearview mirror and see it, which is even more terrible. But maybe people were honking, or
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it kind of was like not really a smart move for two
No.
adults to make that decision, honestly. But it I don't know. It's really crazy. But we have a couple lighter stories that are involving the eclipse.
Yeah,
Do
so
you
f
all right?
yeah, so first when I was thinking about stories coming out from the eclipse, we think about vision, right? Because, we had the solar eclipse glasses, but there was a lot of things going around on the news and the internet that counterfeits were being sold, especially from like Amazon and certain things. So a library near us actually was handing out solar eclipse glasses that right before the event they issued on social media that they were potentially counterfeit and to check them. So somebody in our area did check them and said that they were fine, but I don't know. I wouldn't feel comfortable using them knowing they were potentially counterfeit. Furthermore, I believe they issued the warning on Facebook and Instagram, and my phone is up my butt, but it's not for a lot of people, so I can only imagine a lot of people might not have seen the warning since it was only issued shortly before the eclipse happened. So it's scary to think you could be given glasses, especially I consider a library to be like a pretty trusted source, but
Well, that's debatable. But
yeah.
yeah, that's why I bought my own, because I didn't want to. I know they were giving them out at the school and everything, but I'm like, I'm getting mine. I probably paid more than I should have for them, because they were something from space.com, like they were for a NASA approved thing, but you don't mess around with that shit. And this is, yeah, a town right near us.
What
It's
happens to your eyes that like if you look at it, will you be immediately blind? Or I feel like we
no,
always
that's
are hearing about vision issues, but nobody really explains what happens.
I did explain it a couple weeks ago when we were talking about them closing schools early and stuff for
Yeah.
it. And it could permanently damage your eye. And that's the part about it, is when you look at the sun, especially when it's really bright, it kind of it hurts your eyes in the sense that you want to shut them because it's too bright, but you don't feel the pain of it when it's happening. It's something that could occur weeks later. It could be temporary, or it could be permanent eye damage. You could see like a spot in front of your eye there's a loss of vision. It could affect your color vision. So it's nothing that you would know happened right away. It would just come later. Even maybe, when you go to the eye doctor and they look in the back of your eye and they do all those crazy eye mapping tests and
Mhm.
stuff like that, they could see it then.
Yeah.
But it's nothing you would even know happened. And that's why, when you're cooking and you touch the hot stove, your hand pulls away right away. That Because it's dangerous, right? But that doesn't happen with your eyes, and that's why it was so scary.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know. I feel like even though we had whatever NASA approved glasses you had, there's still some fear, right? About is this
Yeah.
gonna protect me? And
Well, when I go to the eye doctor, I just had like one of those crazy tests done maybe 6 months ago for the medication I'm on, so I'll definitely be able to tell if there was. I mean, I guess it could have been from the medication too, but I'll be able to tell if there was a change for sure. But like, let's talk about this. This next story is like not really medical, although it involves an anatomic part. So I thought I would share it because it's hilarious.
well, on a lighter note, a Mexican TV outlet is getting scrutiny for accidentally broadcasting a man's testicles during the solar eclipse. So this news anchor guy, it's 3 anchors, and this guy is like listing off all these places where you could see the eclipse, and suddenly the female anchors next to him start like giggling out of control. Because on the side of the screen, they're airing user submitted footage of the eclipse, and one of them was this really common prank apparently where men take their testicles over footage, so like his testicles were eclipsing. so, so they're watching this footage of what they think is the eclipse, and all of a sudden this ball sack starts like lifting from the lower screen, and you see the side of thighs and the little pubes like out of the side. It was so disgusting. But the
Yeah,
guy
but
was
kudos to that guy for pulling it off and submitting it and them not finding.
no
'Cause
kudos to that
listen,
guy.
like people want to do that all the time, right? Especially guys with their ball pictures and stuff. They like think it's hilarious. And the fact that they sent it to a news station and they didn't screen it
Yeah.
and posted it is just, I love it so much. It's kind of
Well, it's that, and
kind of
then the
hilarious.
anchor never broke the entire time. He just continued reading what he read. He did not react to it. I could never do
Which
that.
is a skill in itself. I
Yeah.
know. I would be crying laughing.
No, totally.
Okay, so in celebrity news this week, just before we got on today, we just heard that OJ Simpson died.
Yeah, so he is 76 years old. His family reported that he died yesterday after being diagnosed and being on hospice from prostate cancer.
Yeah, so this is the thing that is a little bit confusing to me. Well, first let's say that OJ, we did a 2-part high profile death. Was it 2 parts or 3 parts?
2.
It was a big
We're
a big
saving the
one.
3 parts for Lacey Peterson.
Okay. So yeah, so we did a 2-part death dissection on Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson's homicides, and of course OJ Simpson was the suspect and did it.
Yeah.
Okay, that from everything that I've ever read. So it is what's interesting to me is that despite all of that, he still lived the life of a celebrity and everything like that, and he had. I would assume that he had access to really good medical care. And the reason that I'm saying this is because prostate cancer is a really common cancer that men get, but it's something that could be screened for with blood tests and certain tests that they could figure out and find it really early. He didn't find it until it was too late because it metastasized and spread around his body. And once prostate cancer spreads, it's more fatal. But if you catch it early, it's like once you get diagnosed, you could live like 5 years after 100% of people almost.
Well, do you think there's a he did end up going to prison later for robbery charges.
Prisoners have medical care too.
I know, but I'm just saying, is it possible that he received a diagnosis? He didn't get out on parole until 2017, which really, like, that was 7 years ago. But I'm just thinking, is it possible that they found it there and he wasn't getting like the best treatment he possibly could have been getting there, and it developed?
I don't know. I don't know what happened, but once it spreads, it's bad. It could be really bad, and then
Yeah.
it's like the 5-year survival rate is 34%.
Maybe
or something.
he didn't want to go through treatment, I mean, I understand he was like this superstar NFL player and everything, but really his quality of life couldn't have been good. I know he's not convicted in the case of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, but like, come on, people, let's be honest. We know.
Well,
It's
he
not
was
looking
surrounded
great.
by his children and grandchildren apparently when he died.
And then
so
he ended up going to jail anyway later for robbery, and he was constantly under public scrutiny. I mean, yes, he was a celebrity, and yes, he got off with the crime and everything, but he wasn't living like an awesome quality of life. So maybe he was just like fuck it, I'm older, I don't care anymore. I don't know.
But this is the biggest question, though. Did he make a confession on his deathbed? That's what I want to know.
I mean, he made a
That would-
confession when he wrote a book that said, if I did it. So I think we all know
Yeah.
the answer.
Yeah,
Because if you were truly wrongfully convicted of killing your spouse, I don't think you'd take such great length to then write a book about how you would have done it if you were going to do it and act like it was really not a big deal. I think you would be absolutely beside yourself if you were on trial for killing Gabe or something, right? You wouldn't be like
well, it was his
writing all these
ex-wife.
books.
It was his ex-wife.
Well,
They weren't together when
it's
it
his
happened.
children's mother. Like,
Well, apparently they don't care because they were by his side when he died.
well, they had no other parent. Like, you don't know what trauma the kids were going through. That's not fair to put that on them.
All right, this next is like breaking news in the celebrity world too. Apparently, Tori Spelling cannot pee or poop by herself, and she needs a chaperone.
She's getting on my nerves. She came out with a podcast 2 weeks ago called Miss Spelling, and you know she's like
I like that name though.
No,
it's kind of creative.
great name, but like every episode of this podcast so far was like her phone call to her husband saying the divorce papers have been filed. Her saying when they were deciding to get a divorce, she threw a baked potato at him, and now like she can't, shit by herself. Which like, listen, like I live in a 1-bathroom house. Like there's situations sometimes where somebody's in the shower and you can't wait. Like it happens. The world doesn't need to like know you can't shit by yourself ever.
Well, there's a big difference. So, and it's actually really weird. And I would love to talk to somebody that studies behavioral disorders and mental disorder to kind of figure out what this is, because people have all sorts of things with their pee and their poop, right? Like we know people that won't poop in public, and there's also
I wish that couldn't be me.
There's just so many things that people have with that, and this is just a really weird one because, like you're saying, you would go. I've had to pee in front of Gabe, and it's just so funny because I'm always like, I'm having performance anxiety. I can't do this right now with you in the room or something. You have to do it sometimes, right? But she's saying, and most normal people have a problem doing it in front of people. This is the opposite. She can't do it alone.
Yeah.
And maybe you want to induce that on your husband. That's probably why you're getting divorced. I'm just saying, but to make your 7-year-old son watch you pee and poop because you don't want to be alone in the bathroom.
I don't think this is factual information. I think it's exaggerated. She's getting a lot of press for this podcast. Think about
She said it.
I understand she said it. I think she's exaggerating it to get the headlines.
The only thing I could think is that because her bathroom is probably the size of the entire downstairs of my house, Could it be that?
If she's talking about this, like, think about how her kids are 17, 15, 12, 11, and 7. This is very embarrassing for them. But think about it. She's getting a headline, which is getting her more downloads, which is getting her more money. So, like, let's take a broader look at it. I think she's just exaggerating.
I don't know. She seems a little off.
I don't know. I think that she's getting.
I believe that. I believe that some of these people are such weirdos.
I believe
that's something that happens.
I believe when you're a mother of 5, the possibility of you like going to the bathroom in peace is probably a really rare occurrence. But to say you can't at all go to the bathroom without somebody being in there is weird.
Yeah. Weird.
I really don't think it's like 100% accurate. I think maybe she's saying it's easier for her to go to the bathroom, but not that she can't unless somebody else is in the room.
All right, let's get on to freak accidents.
Okay, so in January, we covered a story that a hot air balloon had crashed in the Arizona desert. 13 people were initially on board. 8 of them were skydivers, which I can't even fathom jumping out of a hot air balloon at all. But those people had jumped out and were fine. But some accident happened, and the remaining 4 out of 5 people died. 1 was in critical condition. So at the time we reported this in January, we weren't 100% sure what caused the crash. And then it came out later, the medical examiner report came out later, saying there was high amounts of ketamine found in the pilot's system. But that isn't necessarily correct. So why don't you explain for everybody what happened?
Well, the first report that came out said that he had high levels of ketamine, and they didn't come out and say that he was high on ketamine at the time of the accident, but they did say that he had 10 times the normal amount that they would see in a person that was considered to be impaired for driving, which is, it's like this implying kind of thing, right? And what happened was the news reported that. We read that in the beginning of the week, right? That it seemed as if this guy, they said he didn't have a prescription for it. And even in the document, the first report, they said that he wasn't administered when he was getting emergency services done, right? So as a person reading this news story, I'm like, oh my God, the guy that was running that thing was high on ketamine when it happened. Then one of the people that were the investigators said that it wasn't reading right or something didn't seem right and looked into it. And then they added an addendum onto the autopsy report, which is basically a change to the original one. And in that, they said, oh, we do have documentation that he was treated with ketamine by the medevac at the scene. Well, that's like a big freaking difference. And you could have slandered that dude's name. I mean, I was saying this to Maria earlier, like, think about my brother is the pilot of this hot air balloon, and all these people die and it's terrible and everybody's upset and you're mourning the death of your brother and everything. And then on top of that, the news comes out and says, oh, he was high on ketamine, even though you knew your brother didn't do drugs at all. And you're like hearing this. Well, they put out this addendum and they put out this story, but it still tarnishes his reputation, I feel. I mean, they put the guy's name in the article and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. And like, I don't really see that, news outlets are running with the like, he's high on ketamine, but I don't see anybody really jumping to correct it, right?
No, that's every
that's
single
why
news
we're
story,
here
right?
to correct it. No, but I do want to say that I did read in this article that this specific hot air balloon that had the accident was only designed to carry a pilot and up to 7 passengers. So I don't know why there was 13 on there, and I think
Oh.
that really should be looked into. But regardless, this guy was 100% not on ketamine, just trying to get high, and the medical examiner's report was affected, and his name should at least be cleared that he wasn't fucked up, which caused the crash.
I know, right? All right, this story is like new fear unlocked. Never thought about this until I read this story.
A 76-year-old man in Canada went to his bathroom and found a rat in the toilet. He tried removing the rat, but was bitten on 2 of his fingers. So initially he visited the ER, which I want to say was the right call, and they gave him a tetanus shot for the bites. But after a couple weeks went by, he started developing fever, headache, abdominal pain, and it turned into sepsis from the rat bite.
So when I first read this story, I always with every single story try to justify living every day. Everyone always asks me like, how are you not stressed out every single day? All this stuff you read, all this stuff you see. Well, because I always try to say, oh, that can't happen to me kind of thing, right? So I read this story and I'm like, you know what? There's never going to be a rat in my toilet, so whatever. It's not going to be my problem, right?
That.
Then I started looking shit up, and I shouldn't have looked shit up. Apparently, and I'm sure any plumber could tell you this, and I must just be a moron for not even knowing this, that the rats in the sewer can like totally climb up inside your toilet.
Yeah.
I did not know that. I never heard of that, and that just I just can't stop thinking about it because now I'm like, oh my God, there's going to be a rat in my toilet. And it just, but anyway, what happened was, so rats carry a bacteria that can be passed on to humans. It's called a zoonotic disease when an animal can share it to, well, humans are animals too, but when a non-human can spread it to a human. And it's called leptospirosis. And that usually it could turn into a huge problem if a lot of people are exposed to it, but it's usually found in the urine of rodents and other animals too. And they still think it's weird that he was bit by this animal and got it, but they think that maybe like the rat peed in the water and then when he touched it, it just like got in that way kind of a thing. But it could have killed him for sure. At least he went to the hospital and got treatment and everything, but Jesus, that talk about freak thing of all those events happening. I don't know. I would shut the lid and I would call 911 and I would set my house on fire.
Okay. Calling 911 for a rat in your toilet is a total waste of police resources, let's be honest.
I don't care that. They'd have to let me slide for that one.
Let me tell you, we got this house in Philly, Ricky and I, a couple years ago. And when we first moved in, it was like newly renovated, beautiful row home, whatever. after living there for a couple weeks, there was it was totally infested. I don't even know how they covered it up when we went to go look at it. But after a couple months, that we were catching mice so frequently, and I was really over living there. And then one night, I heard the trap go off, and I walked back, and the Rat King from the Nutcracker is on this trap. And I was like, dude, I'm moving out of this
Now
house.
I would move out 100%.
I was already trying to move out because of the total mouse infestation that was 100% a pre-existing thing there, and they knew about. And then the second the rat was on the trap, I was like, I cannot sleep here another night. I'm sorry.
No, I couldn't either. Agreed.
This episode is brought to you by The Gross Room.
I know you guys love Mother Knows Death, but with Mother Knows Death, we could only really hear about all of these stories. But in The Gross Room, you could see all of these stories. We have so many stories just from today's episode alone that I thought, oh my God, if these people were members of The Gross Room, they could just go in and see all of these autopsy photos and just things that we're talking about in these cases. And right now, the Gross Room goes on sale only a few times a year. So normally it's $5.99 a month, or it'll be $55 for the entire year, which is already kind of a deal in my opinion, because there's thousands of posts, videos, photos, articles written by us and by our guest writers, just covering all of these stories in the news and so much more. And for a limited time, until what day are we doing
Until Saturday, April 13th, you can get 1 year of The Gross Room for only $20. So
yeah, it's only $20 for the whole entire year for 365 days.
it is
right?
such an unbelievable deal. You get access to all these different posts. We do quizzes every week, a game called What Is It Wednesday, where you have to guess if something's fake or real. I'm really bad at it, but medical professionals like the challenge. It's really good too if you're in nursing school or something, just to test your knowledge.
Anybody's good. And I always tell people to play it because even if they don't know what it is, it's cool because you learn the answer the next week. And then I could see that everybody's getting better at it, and it's becoming more challenging for me to find things because they really know, they know a lot already. So I'm trying to find things to stump them at this point. But yeah, we do prizes with that, and we do giveaways once a month. We have a lot of audio too in the Gross Room if you're not much of a reader. And listen, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not a huge reader, and that's why my book is mostly pictures and the Gross Room's mostly pictures, but with text explaining it. I'm not a huge article reader like that, but if you don't like doing that, even we have a lot of audio recordings of a lot of the different articles, so that's another option if you just want to listen like you do to Mother Knows Death.
Yes, you guys can head over to thegrossroom.com for more info and sign up for the $20 introductory year rate.
All right, let's get on to some violent crime.
So in Oklahoma, two cops showed up to evict an 82-year-old man and his wife from their home when the husband set himself on fire. So cops had been working with this couple over several weeks to relocate them. They were getting evicted, and they had come up with a solution for them to go to some other type of housing where they were basically going that day to pick them up and escort them right to their new living situation. So when they got there, the man, the husband, ran into the back room, started sloshing gasoline all over the room, and then set himself on fire. He killed himself, he killed the family dog, he burnt one of the police officers. It was a mess. They were able to get his wife out of the home. She was suffering from Parkinson's disease, so I'm like, great, she already is dealing with this horrible thing right now, and now her husband just did
And her
this,
dog.
and her dog are dead, and did this heinous act. She has to leave her home. But they don't really know 100% why he did it.
Usually in these cases, it's called self-immolation. It people do it because it's a protest, right? You see it in political things a lot. It's thought to be the worst form of protesting, to really show somebody that you're serious about a cause kind of thing. And maybe the guy was just so pissed off that he had to leave his house. I don't know what the circumstances are surrounding it, but maybe he was just so mad that they had to leave in the situation with the wife being sick and everything, that was his way of telling them that he was protesting that. That's all I could think of.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I could think of too. It's so extreme to do that.
All right, we have to talk about Bryan Kohberger this week, obsessed with this case, and we don't get into it as much as a true crime podcast and stuff obviously do, but we're keeping an eye on it. And I haven't even written a high profile death dissection on this yet because I'm just waiting to see if more information
there's
comes out about the autopsies.
Yeah, there's kind of no point until the trial happens because that's when we're going to get all the details we need. Because right now we know very bare minimum about what happened and how they were killed. But,
Well, can you just briefly tell everyone, for people that aren't familiar, like what we're even talking about?
yeah, and we've covered it before if you've listened to past episodes. So just in brief, because we could, do this for hours. These 4 students in Idaho were brutally murdered, stabbed to death one night. It was November of 2022, correct?
Yes.
And the police, seemingly to our knowledge, for weeks did not know who did it. So it was really scary time because these kids were dead. They didn't know who did it. This guy was on the run. But then in December, somebody was arrested who is Bryan Kohberger. So he is currently the leading suspect in these murders. So his trial was supposed to take place last October but got pushed. It maybe will be next summer, I think is the latest I've heard. Summer of 2025 the trial's going to happen. But there's just so much speculation about what was going on. This guy was a criminology PhD student, so you're thinking like he was literally devoting his life to studying criminal investigation and then committed one of the most heinous crimes of all time. And it's just really, the whole thing's really scary the more information we get, but there's also a gag order going on, so we're not getting a ton of information. All we really know is these kids were stabbed to death, and they linked Bryan Kohberger to the case via DNA on a knight's sheath. So that's like the very bare minimum summary of what's going on here. But basically his lawyers are in trouble. So he's using a public defender, and I can't even imagine what this lady's thinking taking this case on, right? Because like you don't really have a choice.
I don't know what the rules are, like, yeah, that she has to or whatever, but I feel like they're kind of douchey. Like some of the stuff that they're doing, I always keep saying from the very beginning that there's some kind of twist that's going to happen with this, and I'm not
Yeah.
sure what exactly they're trying right now. But tell them what happened this week that is weird. That's why it's in the news this week.
So his attorney hired a psychologist to conduct a phone survey of 400 local residents, asking how much knowledge they had of the case. So you might be asking, like, why would they do this or think this is appropriate? But it seems like they're trying, because of all the media surrounding the case, to get the case moved to a different district so people aren't as familiar with the case.
But everybody's familiar with the case.
Yes, because the internet exists.
And just imagine this. They call these people that live in this town that's like never been on the news before until this. I think there wasn't a murder there for a long time or something. Maybe one years and years and years and years ago. So it's a safe town. Probably people leave their doors unlocked, college campus, all this stuff. And you get a phone call. You're sitting in your living room and get a phone call asking questions about this murder trial.
Yeah, and the prosecution learned of this because one of the people that got the call recorded the conversation and turned it in. So
they were like, this is weird.
Yeah. So, they conducted the survey because they want to try to, like, I don't know, like in my mind, they're contaminating all the local people so that they can't use anybody for the jury. And the judge has already put an order that's like, don't contact potential jurors. Which, why would you ever be allowed to contact potential jurors?
Do you have some of the questions?
I have all
there?
the questions. So the questions are, have you read, seen, or heard if Kohberger was arrested at his parents' home in Pennsylvania? Number 2, have you...
I'll answer all these. I don't live anywhere near Idaho. Like, yes.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, so let me ask you all of them, and then you answer. So your answer to number 1 is yes. Number 2, have you read, seen, or heard if police found knight's sheath on the bed next to one of the victims?
Yes.
Have you read, seen, or heard if DNA found on the knight's sheath was later matched to Kohberger?
Yes.
Have you read, seen, or heard if Kohberger owns the same type of car recorded on video during driving in the neighborhood where the killings occurred?
Yes.
Have you read, seen, or heard if cell phone tower data showed that Kohberger made several trips to the victim's home in months before the killing?
Yes.
Have you read, seen, or heard if university students in Moscow and their parents lived in fear until Kohberger was arrested?
I don't know that for sure, but duh.
I mean, we were living in fear.
I
We were
was-
anywhere near there.
I was living in fear for them. Yes.
Okay, hold on. Have you read, seen, or heard if Kohberger said he was out driving alone on the night of the murder?
Yes.
Have you read, seen, or heard that Kohberger stalked one of the victims?
Yes.
Have you read, seen, or heard that Kohberger had followed one of the victims on social media?
I heard that. Yes, I guess he was
Okay,
sending
so
messages
you're
to
in
somebody.
New Jersey. I mean, we're in kind of a different bracket, right? Because this is our job and part of our job.
But like it isn't though. Like I'd still know this.
Like I had,
Any person that's interested in people that kill people is going to know this.
like I'm embarrassed, but I had to explain this to Ricky like recently. Like he never heard of it before, and I'm like, first of all, it just shows you don't listen to me as your wife because I talk the time. That's another issue. But yeah, I mean,
see, Gabe can't see that because like when it, especially we were on vacation when it happened, and we were driving in the car, and I saw it came through on one of the news text things, and then I put it on to listen to it because they were like, "Oh, we're gonna have a live news conference," and I was like, "Oh, we're listening to this."
So basically, they're like, this is violating the gag order because you're giving specifics in the questions, right?
But the prosecutors are saying that some of that, because the stuff about the Instagram, him messaging her on Instagram and stuff, I don't think that was ever officially released by anybody.
That was like speculation as far as we know.
So I think that, well, it might not be speculation. It might have just been something released that shouldn't have been released or something. But regardless, like the prosecutors, just like some of that stuff in those questions isn't even part of the evidence or the case. So they should be in trouble for contacting the jurors, and maybe they did that on purpose. So they say, oh, now we can't have the trial here. I don't know what they want to do, but I don't think it matters in this case.
Well, the judge is saying this could impact his right to a fair trial. So I think they are considering moving it. So therefore they would be successful.
That's just, I don't know, dude. Whatever. It's just,
I mean,
like,
here's
listen,
the deal.
I don't feel insecure about that, because if any single person reads these details during court, which they're going to get to see autopsies, pictures of these people, and from what I heard, they were filleted. Like, there's no way that people are going to get this guy off. Unless there's the twist bombshell.
Listen, I mean, I do agree in a sense. It shouldn't be, if it's a really small county, it shouldn't be exactly where it occurred because of what you said. Like, people are going to feel a certain way, or people might have known him around there. You don't know. Like, it is the most fair to have a completely, a person like Ricky who has no idea at all what happened and look at it exactly for facts, right?
even if Ricky actually sat there and had to listen to that crap for a couple weeks, he would be like, come on.
Yeah,
This is like saying Scott Peterson is innocent. Like,
it's literally
on.
not. I'm just saying, like, it's already contaminated so much. So, like, you should bring it to a place where it's not. And it's not so he could potentially get off. It's because, like, you need to present it to people that don't have bias on either side.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that you're going to really be able to find many people. Maybe there's people that have no idea what's going on, but
there really is a lot of people that have no idea what's going on.
it must be nice to live in that bliss. All right, medical news.
We have an update on the penis app we talked about last week. So, shocker, it said that a penis cake and a penis-shaped vase were good to go, clear. Go have sex with them, because it can't distinguish the difference between inanimate objects and real penises.
Yeah, so this app that we talked about last week, real quick, just to remind you, it's an app that you're supposed to take a picture of your penis, and it could tell you if you have an STI or not, sexually transmitted infection. I don't think it even gets into specific, like, hey, you have gonorrhea or something like that, but it just tells you maybe you should go get further treatment at the hospital. But it's supposed to say, or you're all clear for sex, or wait for sex, whatever. But
no, it says
yeah.
something sus.
Yeah.
If it thinks there's something wrong.
Well,
Well, so
But so they don't think so somebody, this is genius, like, put in a picture of a penis cake and a penis vase, and it diagnosed it. So and they also put in pictures of genitals with sexually transmitted infections, and it didn't say that
yeah,
anything was wrong.
an
So could
LA
this app just go away for now?
an LA Times reporter uploaded all these different textbook pictures of STDs, and it like couldn't pick all of them up. Or
How how did this thing even get approved this far if, like, someone from the LA Times was able to just do this and be like, "Yeah, this thing
well, and
sucks."
other doctors are saying they're like fine print where it says it's only six. You know, on the homepage it says it's like 95% effective, but on the fine print it says it's 65% effective. The doctors are like 65% is not an acceptable number to be giving people a
Yeah, like, what
diagnosis.
like, you could just call me on the phone and I'll just say, like, "Yeah, you have it," or "You don't," and it would be 65% without even looking at it. Like, it's just the dumbest. There's no point of even talking about this anymore.
Yeah. Speaking of a misdiagnosis, this woman was misdiagnosed with cancer after receiving really aggressive treatment.
Yeah, I can't believe this story, actually. And it was reported in a lot of different places. This woman she was having pain in her abdomen. She went to the hospital. She thought she was having kidney stones, and indeed she got diagnosed with kidney stones, but they ended up seeing a mass on her spleen. When they decided to work her up, they took her spleen out. A lot of times they don't biopsy certain organs because sometimes there's a risk of bleeding, and I guess this particular mass looked like it could bleed a lot, so they just decided to take out your spleen because you can live without it. And they took it out and they sent it down to pathology. So I'll just tell you right now that, like, spleen tumors aren't as common. I've seen them a bunch of times, but they're not as common as, like, colon cancer or breast cancer. So I'm not sure the original hospital that did this, but the surgery came down to the pathology department and they didn't exactly know what the tumor was, so they sent it to another lab to get a second opinion. And this is something that happens often, so I don't think that that's weird. Uh, I don't know why they said they sent it to 4 different labs, but unless it was just something that was really, really unusual and weird, and that's totally possible because there's always these people that get this weird thing that nobody knows what it is, and they have to send it to specialists. Regardless, it comes back, and she's told that she has something called clear cell angiosarcoma, which is a cancer that arises out of blood vessels, right? But it has a really, really poor prognosis. So they told her she had 15 months to live. She's like 38 years old. She had to tell her husband, she had to tell her kids. She starts getting chemotherapy. The first round of chemotherapy, like, all her hair fell out. She went for another round of chemotherapy. She just got really, really sick. She was vomiting. She had, like, her skin started looking weird. So she goes for, like, her checkup appointment, and the nurse practitioner in the office is just, like, asking her about her symptoms from her chemotherapy. And she recalls the nurse practitioner looking in the computer and, like, looking at her really weird and then leaving the room and saying, "I'll be right back," and then came back in with the doctor 15 minutes later, and they said, "Oh, we're sorry. There was some kind of
Not
miscommunication,
we're
and you don't
sorry.
really have."
Congratulations. There was a
Yes,
miscommunication and you don't have
exactly.
cancer.
Yeah, they didn't even say they were sorry, actually. They said, um, "Well, congrats. It looks like you don't have cancer." So I'm just trying to, like, trace back to what I know about working in the pathology department and stuff. Whatever happened, maybe there was some talk over the phone that it could have been this or it could have been that. I don't know how the reports got screwed up or whatever, but I guess the final report saying that it wasn't cancer, all the workup they did, it wasn't cancer, never got to the doctor, or it got to the doctor's office, but they didn't see
It
it because
got
it
to,
was dated a month
yeah,
prior.
so they didn't even look at it until her appointment. So
Yeah,
they had
which,
it for a
and
full month. So she received a second round of chemotherapy in between the time the report was completed and her appointment.
so this is what I think happened, maybe, because if we get if we do a report and it ends up being something really important like that a person needs for their treatment, we would send it, like, with red text that's like, look at this right now. This is a critical value. This is something that's important that needs to be looked at. It can't be thrown on the pile of stuff. But since it was negative, there's just like a miscommunication. Like they weren't saying it was cancer and putting it on top of the pile. They were saying it was negative and putting it at the bottom of the pile. Even though, because the people in pathology didn't know that she was getting treated for cancer. Like this is just like this huge miscommunication. I think I I could kind of see how it happened, although it's terrible that it happened. I'm more concerned that she's saying that she has all these hospital bills and stuff now, and they're just basically like, "Yeah, you're lucky. You don't have to take chemo anymore." And I'm like, "Dude, this has a lawsuit written
Yeah,
all
this
over
is
it, like really
100%
bad." I
lawsuit
hope she gets
worthy.
a good I hope she gets a good attorney because this is malpractice like at its finest, and I just think this can't happen, and like something needs to change for that because you can die getting chemo. It's not like a joke, you
That's
know,
what I
that
was
could
gonna
ruin the rest of her
that's what I
life.
was gonna ask. Is there any long-lasting effects
Yeah,
of
she could absolutely have long lasting effects. It's terrible.
no, like, this is 100% lawsuit worthy. I agree with her. She was like, "I'm more pissed about the congratulations and the lack of apology I received for basically ruining my life." It's like, not only did she, think she was gonna die, she had to put her family through the trauma of thinking she was gonna die. She unnecessarily got treatment that was really harmful to her body. It hasn't been an easy couple of years, and they're just like, "Oh, congrats, we fucked up, so you're good now. You can
I
at
mean,
least pay the
the thing
lady's
is
bills."
is that it is I mean, it's kind of awesome that she doesn't have cancer. That
It is awesome, but
it ends up that it's going to be a great thing for her, but it's not being handled right because I think if I was the oncologist or the pathology department responsible for this case, I would want to sit down and be like, this needs to be dissected out and like never happen again because this is really, really bad that this happened. I still really can't figure out how it happened because technically the oncologist really shouldn't even start treatment until they have the pathology report, and the only thing that I could think is that I don't know, like maybe there was a one report issued and then they changed it. Like we said, they do an addendum, they change it sometimes, but they wouldn't do it like that. That's why like something here doesn't make any sense to me, but it happened to this lady, so something got screwed up, right?
yeah, I mean, hopefully they just learn from this situation and it never happens again.
Okay, what's next?
Counterfeit Botox. So, people in Tennessee and Illinois have been hospitalized after receiving counterfeit Botox. So, first in Illinois, patients were sent to the hospital after getting Botox injections from a nurse who was licensed but not performing them in a licensed facility. And then in Tennessee, complaints came about injections in non-medical settings such as homes or cosmetic spas. So, can you explain like what Botox is? I'm sure we've talked about this before, but what is Botox and why is it so crucial that you get it done in a licensed facility and with a licensed practitioner?
So there's a bacteria that causes botulism, and this bacteria gives off toxins that could cause muscle paralysis. And if you think about muscle paralysis and all the muscles in your body that control things, it could cause your eyelids to be droopy. It could cause your diaphragm to not work properly, which assists with breathing. It could cause mega problems and it could lead to death. It's really bad. But scientists years ago figured out that that toxin that paralyzes muscles, if it was used in a really tiny amount in a controlled environment, that it could paralyze muscles and make people not have wrinkles, right? I personally think it's like the best, one of the best drugs that were ever created, right? But whenever you talk about anything, you're always going to have counterfeit things. And not only was this performed by somebody that wasn't doing it in the correct way, but also they're thinking that the Botox might be fake Botox. They didn't get it from where they should have gotten it. And so there's not in the United States, it's just the same as everything else that gets done, abortion, whatever. Like things are different in every state, right? So in some states, nurses are allowed to give Botox. In other states, the only person that's allowed to give Botox is doctors. There's all these rules. I even think in New Jersey, you're allowed to give Botox if you're a nurse, but you have to have a doctor there. So like if you're a nurse working at a doctor's office, you can give it in front of the doctor, but you're not allowed to do it at the salon and spa,
Yeah.
which is sounds like what happened, something like that. And what the physician is probably the only one that's allowed to order the Botox because it's a prescription. So they were getting it somewhere else, and that's how you get the counterfeit one. You wouldn't get that from whatever drug rep you ordered that from. That came from Amazon. I'm not probably not, but I'm just saying
Yeah, like where
it
do
could
you
have been
even order fake Botox from?
it's the
That's
same place you get all fake drugs from. I don't know. I don't order fake drugs, so I don't know. But that's the risk. So there's lots of risk with it because you want to go to somebody that knows how they're injecting it because it is botulism is very dangerous, and if you're not doing it the right way, you can hurt somebody with it. That's why you should have someone that's trained to inject it and using the right product and has the right qualifications. Otherwise, I feel like it's pretty good. It doesn't cause too many problems when it's being used properly. You don't hear about it a lot unless it's like situations like this.
well, yeah, and I feel like we've talked about this before where, people go to like hotel rooms and get butt injections and everything. And I think it's really on you as somebody looking to get these treatments to look into.
We had a story this week that we caught because we had a million stories, but there was another story about a mom and a daughter that were doing illegal butt injections in like a hotel room or something like that.
Yeah, and I think it's really up to you as the person getting these treatments to look into the legality because, I've even heard stories where it's like, "Oh, my neighbor's friend is my friend's neighbor is giving Ozempic shots cuz he just does it on the side." And I'm like, "So you think it's good to go to this stranger's house and just get an injection not in the proper place, whatever." But
Yeah, I mean, I know I've heard of people doing like Botox parties and stuff, and I think if you're a doctor and there's no reason why you can't bring the stuff in a bag and do it in someone's house with gloves on and everything if you're doing one of these
I
things,
don't
if
think
you're a
the
licensed
liability is
physician.
worth it at all.
Yeah, I mean, exactly, but there's just a big difference, but you really should figure that out because I do hear about a lot of like nail salons doing it and things like that. And it's like you certainly and that's what the problem is because if you go to like a legit person you get Botox, it's gonna cost like it could be like $300, $400, whatever it costs, and people can go to a nail salon and get it for $200, right? Like
Well, you get
and
what you pay for, so.
yeah, exactly. And it's just oh my God.
All right, so this woman has died after an ointment she bought on Facebook had a deadly amount of lead in it and she got lead poisoning. So, first, I think we could all agree you don't buy creams, any medicine at all off of Facebook, and you certainly then don't have your relatives mail it to you.
Yeah, I don't know how that worked because it said she bought I won't even try to pronounce what the name of this
Yeah,
is,
I
but
have
she
it, but
bought
I can't.
she bought this ointment on Facebook and then one of her relatives in Vietnam mailed it to her, so I don't know why she went through all that instead of just like, why didn't you just go to CVS and get some what is it called? Preparation H or something? I don't know, but they have pictures of it and they did testing on it. It has 4% lead, which is a huge amount. And when you're putting that right on a lesion, a vascular lesion on your butt that's bleeding and everything like that, you're just putting it directly into your bloodstream. It's just not a good idea to ever do that. And I do hear from time to time these things getting sold on Facebook like this and stuff, and it's like they have this amazing technology that could pick up all this stuff, right? But then they can't pick up things like this. There's no reason that creams that are being sold in Vietnam that aren't FDA approved and aren't allowed to be sold in this country, there really shouldn't even have access to it here. But
I feel that way. I when I'm on Poshmark, I even see that people have makeup for sale, and I just personally would never even buy makeup for sale. Like, you just don't know what people are doing to it.
yeah, and I mean the same could be said for Amazon though too, right? Like you can get vitamins and stuff. Like you really don't know unless you're getting it from like the official store because you know how some places have like their own stores. You don't really know what you're getting, and it is scary, I guess. But in this case, I think the fact that the family, like maybe it was some kind of treatment that they she wanted to use that the people in the Vietnam or something like swore it was like the best thing ever,
Well,
and
yeah,
it really worked.
because it's putting
It
you out of
did.
your
It did.
misery
She doesn't.
long
Well,
term.
guess what? She doesn't have hemorrhoids anymore.
Okay, next. A doctor in Quebec treated a man with body integrity identity disorder by amputating 2 healthy fingers from his left hand. So this 20-year-old had reportedly had a quote traumatizing sensation that in his fingers since childhood that he felt didn't belong in his body. Michelle actually wrote an article about this a couple years ago in the Gross Room called When Disability or hold on, it's When Ability Equals Disability, talking about this rare phenomenon where people, they have a totally healthy limb, leg, in this guy's case, 2 fingers that are just mentally tripping them out so bad that they feel they need to surgically be removed in order to continue living a healthy life. So after this guy was diagnosed with the disorder and doctors really looked into it and he had received all the treatment he possibly could, they agreed to do the elective amputation, cut the fingers off, and now this guy is living this like most amazing quality of life now that the fingers are gone.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about this. If you want to do it, then do it. It's just what the thing is that I'm against is if you get this done and then I mean, fingers are one thing, right? Like you can pretty much live a normal life without 2 fingers. But what about people that want to cut off more than that, like their entire leg or something?
Well, they've
And now
done
they're
it.
I know. So do they get like disability insurance and do they or pay out all this stuff? Like who are who pays for that stuff? Do they get discounts on wheelchairs and things that actual people that have disabilities need? That's what I'm curious about. Or do you sign some kind of waiver that's just like, this is all my problem, my financial burden?
I want to assume if it was on record as an elective surgery, then you would have to cover that cost, but then there's this probably gray
There's
area.
definitely no legislation written for any of this.
I'm not saying legislation, but like there's probably this gray area because I would assume this is categorized as a version of a mental illness. So is that the disability? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. It's just
It's
like
it's a rare thing.
I don't care. I don't care if it like whatever people want to do, they want to do, but like as long as it's not it doesn't end up taking away things from people that are actually disabled, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, you should not be taking away things from people that have disabilities against their will because this phenomenon is like this obsessive desire to have a disability. And it is very rare, but it has happened before, which prompted the article she wrote 2 years ago and then prompted this. And I am really surprised that a doctor went forward and did it. And I wonder if this would happen in the US.
Well, listen, a doctor, think about all these people that look like freaks with these crazy plastic surgery and stuff. Like there's always a doctor that's going to do something. Have you seen these women that have like these breast implants that their bodies cannot hold and they have all these problems with them and everything and they go in and they just get bigger and bigger? Like there's always going to be, look at Michael Jackson. Like there's always going to be somebody that's going to do something if you hand them money.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for like do whatever you want, but I agree with you. Like, don't take away things from people that actually really need them. But I think this is just going to fall into a gray area of like, well, that person needed it because they had a mental disorder going on. I don't know. Like, you could go down this rabbit hole for a long time,
Yeah.
going back and forth about what the legalities would be. But let's move on. So, Eugenia Cooney is a fashion and beauty influencer. She's on TikTok, Instagram. Actually, we've been receiving a lot of messages from you guys about covering her. This story seems the most relevant. So, when I went on her page and looked at her picture today, she looks like what in my day we called a scene queen, like big black teased out hair, emo look, really nice makeup. I mean, she has way better makeup than we ever did back in, like 2006 when this was a huge thing. But basically, her fans are really worried about her because she has an extremely thin appearance. There's thought that she has this extreme eating disorder. And now TikTok, when you look up her name, does not bring up her page, but instead issues a warning and help for somebody with an eating disorder. So we have to think
It's a weird thing too that says help. It's like an anatomic drawing
of
of
a
a
stomach with a heart with a number to like an eating disorder hotline. So I think we're getting in this weird category of, we can all look at her and assume she has an eating disorder, but she hasn't come forward and admitted that to my
No,
knowledge.
no, she has. In
Okay.
2019, she finally admitted. I mean, this for those of you that don't know who we're talking about, I need to describe what she looks like because Maria's being a little nice here. She's 84 pounds and 5'7". Okay, so think about what she looks like. She looks like a skeleton. She looks like a person that has anorexia or some kind of severe eating disorder, and people are do not they've been signing petitions years now to get her off of the internet because they think that she's not only a bad influence on other children who are following her and women that are following her, but also that she's a harm to herself and that she's triggering people to have eating disorders. And a lot of people that have eating disorders will say that stuff like that does trigger them. And when I look at this girl, I think that she should be taken off for her own health because clearly like the fame of it is not good for her in my opinion, because now she has all these followers and stuff because people are following her because of her appearance is so outrageous and people can't believe that somebody is that thin and they're living like that. And her apparently her mother's involved with it. Like there's been all this talk that her mom was always pressuring her to post, and at some point her mom came out and said, my daughter is not sick. I sit with her all the time and she eats. And you're like, your daughter's 84 pounds and she's 5'7". Like, you could tell us all not to believe what our eyes are seeing, but that's happening right now. And for her, it's like her whole entire identity is now she has all these followers and stuff because she does stuff like makeup or whatever she does, but like I think the majority of the people are flooding in because of her appearance. So how's she ever going to feel good about getting to a normal weight and being healthy when she's gotten all this attention for being 84 pounds?
I don't know how to feel about this because personally, I don't think it's up to TikTok to make that decision. And it's
Well,
it
are they showing people that are obese? Because it's the same damn thing.
well, that's what I was gonna say. Like there's kind of an irony behind it because we're showing lots of people that have eating disorders and unhealthy lifestyle habits. So what makes her the example they have to make, right? You know, I don't really agree with the fact that she's shadow banned and everything, even though I don't agree she should be parading around an unhealthy way of being, but what makes her different from other people that are also doing the same thing? She just is more visibly going through something than other people. So like it's it's kind of like on her and her family if she wants to get treatment and be removed from the platform, not for the platform to remove her.
I mean, and I definitely agree. I agree with that, but this is the problem. Like the internet is just the Wild West and there's no regulation of everything. And you they're making an example out of her. I agree with you. But like her BMI is like a 13.5 and you could die at that BMI, right? But like when your BMI is a 40, it's celebrated.
Like
It's like this is the new healthy. This is the new. So if you're going to do that, I 100% agree with you. You should do it across the board because this girl isn't telling girls to be anorexic or eating or skinny. She just looks that way. She doesn't ever promote it, whereas the other ones actually do promote obesity.
but what's to say what's triggering and what's not? Anybody could be triggered by anything. So like I understand a lot of people with eating disorders are coming forward saying that her appearance is triggering, but don't look at her page. And like
I think that
and I
I
think
think
that
her page could be there, and if you search for her, you should definitely be able to find her if you want to look for her, but it should maybe it's like mine, right? You can go on mine, you could find mine, but like they don't want it popping up in the regular feed because it's triggering to
no,
people.
yeah, and like if they
But
want to
but
shadow ban her, I guess that's their right to do that. But and I don't even if she has publicly come forward and admitted she has an eating disorder, I don't mind TikTok providing resources to help somebody with an eating disorder. But to fully not make her page searchable and potentially ban her, that's up to her to get the treatment she wants and live the way she wants. Like, she's an adult. There's not a form of child abuse going on.
Well, there's something about this particular girl because so many people message us to cover this and what's up with her. And I mean, she does, when you look at her, her appearance is so disturbing because you just shouldn't ever, I mean, she looks like a living skeleton. It's just, it's disturbing. So I think that's the intrigue that a lot of people have. I mean, the only reason I know who she is because people are like, "Oh my God, you got to look at this." And then I look her up because of course I want to see it. And for me, I mean, there's nothing in the world that's going to stop me from eating. So it doesn't do anything to me, right? I've never had that issue, but like, I know people that have had that issue and it could be, but like you said, there's everything in the world that's triggering. And you know that I hear that on Instagram all the time. Like it'll be a poster, a picture I post of something with hair. It's triggering to some people. This is triggering. And I'm just like, dude, I use this example all the time. Like ET triggers me, like whatever. I don't like it. It makes me feel gross. I didn't like the movie when I was a little kid. I hope my cousin Renee is listening right now because she just sent me. My family thinks it's really funny to send me text messages of pictures of ET or something, and I was just like, "Thanks for triggering me, Renee. You ruined my day." But
I just really like, bottom line, I'm not saying I condone what she's doing. I don't think it's healthy, but like, what's to say she's the example? We are seeing people do incredibly unhealthy things online all the time, whether it's being obese, smoking weed, excessively drinking alcohol. Why is her lifestyle choice worse than other
no,
people's?
yeah, you're right. Yeah,
So
I agree.
I certainly don't condone it, but she clearly is going through something, and that's on her and her family to get her the treatment, not the internet to tell her to get the treatment.
I'm honestly more concerned for her.
No, I'm concerned for her.
I'm concerned for her, and what is worrisome is that it doesn't seem like this is the problem because when you have a YouTube like that, when you go from being a regular person to making money and stuff, it's like the whole team that is behind you that's now changed their life because they're all making money too, is maybe making you do things that are not in your best interest anymore. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think like
And that's what's
I
sad.
think part of being a content creator is, she can see everybody's comments and concerns and maybe take that to help get treatment, but if this is what she wants to do, like, she's a grown up and the internet is the Wild West, so like you said, she's not promoting having an eating disorder. She just very visibly has one.
All right, let's talk about vaping. So, shocker, vaping's not good for you. And the thing is you have to hear this stuff all the time. It's like a broken record when these new things come out that are supposed to be the latest and greatest awesome thing, and there's no research behind it. So vaping comes out and people are doing it all the time, and I said this 20 years ago that we'd have to wait 20 years to really be able to see what the long-term effects of vaping were going to be because we wouldn't know. You would see cases here and there about acute things that happen to people that vape, like popcorn lung and stuff, but really you wouldn't see it until long term to see what the effects are. And sure enough, the American College of Cardiology said that vape users have a 19% more likely chance of developing heart failure than people that are non-vape users. That's a huge amount.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I feel like especially my generation, thinks that vaping is so much healthier than smoking cigarettes. And like, even the doctors in this article are saying there are elements of it that can be, but in general, it is certainly not healthier.
I think that, and I've always said this, that I think that vaping is a step down from cigarettes. If that's what you need to like wean off, but you need to wean off the vaping and not like in 5 years, like short term.
Yeah.
Because you're using the straight nicotine affects the blood vessels, right? And it doesn't matter if it's not going into your lungs and with a flame, right? It's still the same thing though. You're putting that chemical into your body. I've been saying for 30 years, like for my entire life, do not trust anything that comes from a tobacco company. Just don't trust it. They've already lied and they'll lie again because they want to keep getting your money. Just don't.
Yeah, especially because we know they have a history of targeting younger demographics for marketing and everything. So,
So this next thing, I learned about this. We're going to talk about decaf coffee right now. I've have it. I kind of like don't really care about it because I'm like, what's the point? I guess I do like to taste a coffee, and it's nice to have, at dinner if you can't sleep well. But I remember a few months ago, I looked up like how does coffee get decaffeinated anyway? And I saw that they put the coffee, so they don't grow a special bean or something. They put the coffee in a chemical process called methylene chloride, and that's how they take the caffeine out of coffee. Well, people are coming forward now and saying that, like, scientists are coming forward and trying to get it banned because they're saying that that chemical has been marked as a carcinogen from the WHO and from the EPA.
well, first, it's important to note that not all coffee brands use this process, but it is important if you are a decaf drinker to look into it because it's a known carcinogen. But I don't know, like for for somebody like me, I have been cutting back on my coffee intake recently because I just feel like I ebb and flow and going through high anxious periods and not, and caffeine certainly doesn't help my anxiety levels. So, I really love the taste of coffee. So, like, I still want the ritual of my morning drink, but not like the jitters that are associated with it, right? So, I understand what you're saying. Like, you're not somebody that would resort to decaf coffee, but a lot of people do, especially like pregnant people and the same thing. They want a coffee, but they can't have the caffeine. And I mean, I'm sure now this is dangerous to them in other ways, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely something important to look into now that this is public information or, coming out in the news more. We have to look into the ingredients or the process behind it, and I guess not every company is going to be very forward about the chemicals they're using in their products, but
Yeah, because when you get a bag of decaf coffee, does it even say that? Or does it just say whatever beans, period? Like,
I don't know cuz right now I've been using the Nespresso right now, and I got these pods that are half calf pods. And I'm just totally the same as everybody else. Like, I bought them, I dumped them all into a cute container, and I never looked at the packaging.
yeah, that's you have to start doing that. And
Yeah.
I was listening to the local radio today, and they were talking about, they were reading the labels off of like something like ketchup, and it's like when there's 5 ingredients in some that you can't even pronounce the name, it's like it's probably the best not to try to have those ones.
Yeah.
I know it's because they've been talking about so much, like the increased risk of cancer in young people and stuff, and you know that it's related to that. So as much as possible, I'm not saying to be one of these, because I'm certainly don't do that. You don't need to be a crazy person that reads every single label and like won't let your kids have this and that. But like when it's possible, try to avoid that stuff as much as you can.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay. Other death news?
Okay, so in the gross room, we've covered this famous true crime case. It was covered on Netflix, the Watts family murders. So the Colorado house where Chris Watts murdered his family is now up for sale again in the last few years since this crime occurred. So, for those who aren't familiar with this crime, on August 13th, 2018, Chris Watts strangled his pregnant wife to death in their five-bedroom home. He then put her body in the trunk and loaded up his 3 and 4-year-old daughters in the car. They went on a drive. He smothered the 2 kids to death, dumped their bodies in oil tanks, and buried the wife in a shallow grave. So, the house where the murder occurred is for sale currently for $775,000. It had previously sold for $600,000 in November of 2022. Since those people bought it in 2022, they painted it from tan to white. Like, that's going to change what happened. And I don't know. I think that's so much money for a house with such a horrible thing tied to it, but we've had this happen in the past. Last year, you sent me a listing to a house in Colorado, and I was looking through it and was thinking, wow, this is like my dream house, the way it was set up. It was beautiful. And then when I got to pictures of the basement, I never read the listing first. I always just go right to the pictures. And when I got to the basement, That was like
Yeah, but the basement was completely redone.
I know, but like as I started going through pictures of the house, I was like, this seems familiar, only to realize it was the house where John Benet Ramsey was murdered.
Yeah.
So, the houses pop up once in a while. John Wayne Gacy's house sold, but those people ended up demolishing it and building a new house on that site. The house where the staircase murder occurred, that was sold. We see houses like this all the time. And, when you buy a house, if a crime, I guess it depends what state you're in, but they have to disclose if certain things happen there. But I don't know if I
Well,
would willingly buy a
remember
house.
Mike, our mailman, he was saying that like 2 people died by suicide in his house or something like
Yeah.
that, and he only found out he said he knew about the one, but he didn't know about the other one until the neighbor told him or something, and yeah, I mean, I think that there's going to be somebody that would wanna buy that house because there's true crime people that are into that kinda thing. I personally would not want, like, the bad juju in my house, you know what I mean? I don't wanna be somewhere where, like, I don't we just looked at that house last year that was that one that was
Mhm.
on sale at the water, and they said that the family like, we could tell the family was getting divorced, and I was like, "I don't even wanna be in a house where, like, there's negative energy in the house like that."
Here's the thing, like, I have an itch that the older people we bought my house off of died in the house, but I don't know.
It don't smell.
No, but I don't know if I could. You have to assume most houses there's been especially if your house is old, people used to die really young and from sickness and whatever. You just have to assume that death is a common thing that's happened in homes, but a crime of this nature, I just don't know if I could get over the negative energy. I even think of John Wayne Gacy's property. Like, I understand that people knocked the house down and built something else on top, but like, you're living on the property where one of the most horrific murderers ever lived, and I just don't know if I could get over that happening.
I think it's probably for some people that are into that kind of thing, but like, yeah, I just and you guys really so we were talking about the grocer and being on sale and stuff. You should really check out this high profile death dissection that I wrote way back in 2020. It's almost really unbelievable what this guy did to his wife and his children, the children especially. You just can't even imagine it, but the wife was pregnant. You did mention that she was pregnant, right?
Yeah.
When she was 15 weeks pregnant and she had something what's called a coffin birth. So I show some photos of what that would be and talk about that a little bit. And the children were just pushed into these oil tanks and just what that might have looked like. It's just completely, it's so terrible. So make sure you read that.
It's disgusting, and it's not like this guy's in jail for the rest of his life. It's not like he's coming back for his house, but he's got like girlfriends and stuff in jail.
Of
So
course.
yeah,
So does Bryan Kohberger, apparently.
yeah, that's a whole.
He has like a whole entire, there's like a whole thing of fans and love letters and all that stuff. Like, what is up with
I started watching this show on Lifetime called Prison Brides a couple months ago, and I totally forgot about it. And now that I just remembered, I'm going to go back and finish it because Ricky was interested too. But yeah, it was like women waiting for their husbands to get out or preparing to get married in prison. So very interesting. Okay, last. Sierra Leone has declared an emergency over the new zombie drug called Kush. So, Kush, as we know it in the United States, is a natural form of cannabis, but in Sierra Leone, Kush is a synthetic cannabinoid, if that's the correct pronunciation. I've been getting roasted for how I'm pronouncing stuff lately. A mixture of cannabis, fentanyl, tramadol, formaldehyde, and most disturbingly, ground up human bones. So I don't even understand what the possible benefit of putting ground up human bones in this could be.
I don't know. But the formaldehyde is like what the problem is.
Yeah.
Clearly, but people, yeah, these people are trying to get some of the ingredients and one of them is bones, so they've been digging up dead bodies to grind up bones.
Yeah,
so
so
that's why they're putting out an emergency.
Yeah, because these police are having to like guard cemeteries because the grave robbers are digging up bodies and trying to steal the bones to use for this drug, which is becoming a serious problem over
The
there.
drug would work the same exact way without the bones. I'm just saying.
I don't know. Then there's this. I was reading somewhere else that there's this thought that they're digging up the bones of people that were known to have died from fentanyl use, thinking there's like extra levels of fentanyl in the bones. And I just think
Oh
people are
my
really
God.
uneducated, and addicts will do anything to hit the high they want, and it's just
They were
really
saying
scary.
they were saying in Sierra Leone that from 2020 to 2023 at their Sierra Leone psychiatric hospital, the people coming in from illness from this went up 4,000%.
Yeah. I mean,
Like, how outrageous
wasn't
is
there
that?
an episode of 6 Feet Under where Claire steals formaldehyde from the family funeral home to make some drug concoction so they could all get high?
Oh, probably. I don't remember that specific episode, but that was the thing when I was like in the 90s. I think it was like angel dust or wet or something. You would like dip a joint in it, and who the hell would do that? I don't know. But yeah, that was like a thing.
I don't know. On to question of the day. Every Friday on the @MotherKnowsDeath Instagram account, we put up a little question box on the story so you guys could ask us whatever you want. This week we got some really good ones. So first, how are stomach contents determined? I would think they would just look like mush.
Well, have you ever seen someone throw up? Have you,
Yes.
Maria? Okay, well that's what stomach contents are. It's puke, right? It's disgusting. It is something that kind of grosses me out a little bit to look through, but we measure it, and they do a lot more. Like at the medical examiner's office, they could send stomach contents for toxicology and things like that. But we look through it. I actually had a case where the stomach contents were relevant because we had this guy, we didn't really know why he died, and when I opened him up, I found a mushroom actually lodged in his esophagus, or in his trachea, really, in the windpipe. And when I opened it up, he had it looked like he ate, I mean, this is crazy Philly autopsy, but it looked like he ate a cheesesteak with mushrooms on it because it was so not digested at all, just barely, that I was able to pick out the pieces and be able to see that it was like a cheesesteak that he ate.
That's
And
nuts.
but the mushroom, the thing, because he was a hospital patient that had just died, so it was kind of weird that happened. But yeah, so examining the stomach contents, depending on when the food was digested, you could really tell what it is, right? I mean, you've seen someone throw up right away after they eat. There's pieces that are very identifiable in there, and that could be helpful for so many things. You could see if people took drugs. The pills might not be even dissolved yet. There's just so many things that you could find from it, and it's gross. And I mean, but it's basically like liquid. We measure it.
Yeah.
Take it out with a ladle.
Ladle. Gross. 2, how did you teach your kids sex ed?
Well, with you, so Maria was my first kid, and of course I got pregnant with her when I was 15, or when I was 14 actually.
I
had her
feel
when I was
like I
15.
had a pretty concrete understanding of my conception, and I didn't really need that much of a talk.
Yeah, I mean, Maria kind of knew what her situation was growing up, but I was just hardcore, started talking to her about it as soon as it was time. And for the other ones, I haven't really talked about it to them too much because Lillian just turned 11 and Lucia's 9, and they're not at that point yet, but I will be talking to them about it soon and having a very awkward conversation.
You also saw what I looked like when I was a teenager. I don't think anyone was fighting to do anything with me, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't think it needs to be. I mean, I obviously have had talks with them about people touching you inappropriately, things like that.
Yeah.
For their age, I just don't think right now. I feel like, because we watch movies sometimes and they'll talk about sex and the kids will ask me about it, and I'm just like, once you talk to a child about that, then it's like before Santa, after Santa. Before you know about sex, after you know about sex, right? So then all of a sudden it'll be like, oh my God, my parents do that. Oh my God. And just going down these rabbit holes of everything. So I just think for right now, I just want them to they're little kids, they're enjoying little kids, and they know all their body parts and they know what they do, but they just haven't quite figured out that they like you need one for the other and that sort of thing. And we'll it's kind of amazing that kids don't ask those questions, right? Like they just say like, "Oh, well when's the baby coming?" You know, they
Yeah.
don't really wonder how it gets in there, why it happens to some people before they get married and some people after they like they just I love it and I just want to keep it that
'Cause I
way for a
think
little while
I
longer.
think they think in their heads like it's similar to getting a cold or something. Like it just happens
It
to you.
just falls upon you. I
Yeah.
think the scariest part is I think of a lot of adults think that way.
Yeah.
They don't really realize that you could prevent it from happening.
Okay, last. What does a typical weekend look like for you and your families?
Well, we get together like for all of us, like well, especially in the summer because I have a pool and stuff. We'll do more things. Like my parents will come over, Maria, Ricky will come over. We'll go in the pool and like have a barbecue.
Yeah, like a
Um,
normal weekend for us is like I don't know. We usually just stay home Friday night and then Saturday we'll like run errands. We usually go out and get lunch or go take, a drive somewhere and then Sundays pretty religiously like we don't leave the house unless we absolutely have to and that's laundry day, cleaning day, just chilling around the house day.
yeah, our weekends are different. Like the kids have like a pretty normal schedule with school. And I do too. But Gabe, has a weird schedule. So sometimes he's home, sometimes he's not, stuff like that. So it's the same with us. We do like family movie nights. The kids could stay up a little bit later, try to get together with the family every couple weeks just on the weekend and just do our normal thing. They have softball, antique store, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we don't do anything exciting. We're kind of
I'll
boring.
mow the lawn this weekend.
Yeah.
Nothing mind blowing.
No. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. Tune in for an incredibly amazing interview we have coming up next
Oh,
week.
yes. I'm so
I don't
excited.
even, you know what? We'll leave it a surprise for everybody.
Yeah.
I don't even want to spoil it, but it is so good. I can't wait for you guys to listen to it. We'll see you next week.
See ya.